If you are hearing these words right now, it is not by chance, not by accident. This moment has been divinely arranged, and your spirit was guided here on purpose. Something inside you has been carrying weight for far too long, pushing forward day after day with little to show for it, trying to stay faithful while results seem delayed and doors stayed shut. The exhaustion you feel is real. The quiet worry about finances, direction, and worth has been pressing on you, and it has felt like life has been paused while everyone else moves ahead. This is not because you were forgotten, overlooked, or lacking. This is because a deeper work has been unfolding beneath the surface, shaping endurance, refining trust, and strengthening what cannot be seen yet. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. These words are not distant promises. They echo the season you have been walking through. The strain, the waiting, the moments of doubt were never wasted. A shift has already begun, even if your circumstances have not caught up yet. The pressure you have felt has been a sign of transition, not failure. The ground beneath you is moving, quietly but surely, and the heaviness that followed you for so long is beginning to lift. What felt like stagnation is giving way to alignment, and what felt like loss of momentum is being replaced with steady preparation. Relief is nearer than it appears. Reassurance is already settling into your spirit, and anticipation is rising, even if you cannot fully explain it yet. Stay here, because what comes next will put words to what your soul has already sensed and confirm why this moment, right now, matters more than you realize. Number 1. Sudden wealth arrives as a blessing, but it functions like a spiritual examination, wearing material clothing. It sounds like a fantasy until you're standing inside it and realizing it doesn't just change what's in your account, it tests what's in your heart. At first it feels like relief, like reward, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years. But once the pressure of survival lifts, something deeper begins. When money was tight, decisions were narrow, discipline was forced, prayer was constant. But when options expand, so do distractions, impulses, and hidden appetites. That's where many lose their footing. Sudden abundance doesn't only bring comfort, it hands you influence, and influence exposes everything that's been quietly buried. Old insecurities start whispering, the need to prove something resurfaces, the urge to be seen, to be admired, to rewrite old wounds with shiny evidence begins to stir. If your sense of worth is still tied to lack, then abundance won't feel freeing, it will feel consuming. Instead of money working for you, you start working for the image it creates. Many assume wealth is given as a display of favor, but that's a shallow understanding. Wealth is entrusted as a responsibility. It's not decoration, it's equipment. And equipment in untrained hands causes damage. That's why delay often comes before overflow, not as rejection, but as refinement. The waiting season strips away desperation, burns off greed, confronts insecurity, and strengthens discernment. It teaches the soul how to stay anchored when the environment changes, because abundance poured into an unhealed identity doesn't elevate, it amplifies the fracture. Fire in careless hands doesn't refine, it destroys. This is why sudden wealth is less about applause and more about readiness. It will surface loyalties, expose fears, reveal dependencies, and highlight what still needs mending. Many people beg for the breakthrough but resent the inner exposure that follows. The chosen one understands the difference. If this level of provision is approaching your life, it's because the preparation has already been weighed and your spirit has been found steady enough to carry what's coming without losing itself. Number 2, money never transforms your nature. It turns the volume up on whatever has been sleeping inside you. Wealth doesn't rewrite who you are. It hands the real you a microphone and removes the mute button. That's why sudden abundance can be dangerous for those who skipped the inner work. When money arrives, it brings attention, access, influence, and all of it amplifies what was already there. Old bitterness doesn't disappear, it escalates. Quiet insecurity starts demanding applause from people who don't even know you. Hidden hunger for control begins using money as leverage. None of that is created by wealth, it's uncovered by it. Many believe money will finally make them whole, but if peace was missing before, abundance only makes the emptiness echo louder. Wealth is not a cure, it's a spotlight. It exposes habits you ignored, fears you avoided, impulses you justified, and the subtle addiction to being seen. Without discipline, distraction feels like enjoyment, and excess feels like freedom, until you realize you're more scattered than fulfilled. This is why chosen ones often walk through long stretches of lack before overflow appears. That season isn't rejection, it's conditioning. It's where ego gets dismantled, trauma loses its grip, and unhealthy patterns are confronted while the stakes are still low. God watches closely how you move when resources are scarce, how you treat people when nothing can be gained, how you steward the small without an audience. Because if the last dollar is already being spent to impress people who won't stay, what happens when the numbers add zeros? Wealth makes your name louder, but if character hasn't been fortified, the spotlight becomes heavy. Trust becomes complicated, motives feel blurred, and identity starts bending to please expectations. That's why preparation matters more than possession. Money itself carries no morality, it simply magnifies. And for the chosen, God isn't interested in loud riches. He's interested in quiet wisdom, because wisdom is what keeps abundance standing when excitement fades and reality settles in. Number 3, the waiting was never rejection. It was divine shelter from being seen too soon. Many assume that if something hasn't arrived yet, it means it was never meant for them, but for the chosen. Delay is often the clearest sign of protection. You weren't overlooked, you weren't passed by. You were being concealed. Because if abundance had shown up before your discernment matured, you would have given access to people who were never assigned to your future. You would have invested your blessing into hands that only knew how to consume, not contribute. The pause wasn't a denial. It was God saying, not yet, not in this environment, not with these people. Wealth attracts attention, and attention attracts opportunists. The moment money enters the picture, energy shifts. Familiar faces begin acting strange. Loyalty gets tested. Motives get blurry. And when the heart is still tender, history can be mistaken for alignment. Just because someone has been present doesn't mean they're permitted to come along. So time was used as a filter. God allowed distance to reveal intentions. He let disappointment sharpen your perception. He allowed betrayal to train your discernment, not as punishment, but as preparation. because provision released too early often becomes the very thing that destroys what it was meant to elevate. You aren't being entrusted with comfort alone. You're being trusted with influence, reach, and generational impact. That level of weight can't be handed to an unready version of you, even if that version meant well. So the pace slowed. Isolation came. Attachments fell away. You were forced to confront your wounds, stand without support, and learn how to anchor your identity beyond external affirmation. Because if peace couldn't be protected in lack, abundance would have devoured you. Some of the quiet seasons weren't emptiness, they were separation. You thought certain people were rooting for you, but they were observing, waiting for the moment to benefit. God had to remove them before releasing the flow, and when it finally arrives, you'll understand the delay wasn't loss, it was mercy. Because the one still beside you won't be there for what you have, but for who you are. And the part that explains why this delay followed you specifically hasn't been revealed yet. Number 4. The increase arriving in your life was never meant to be a spotlight. It was meant to be supply for assignment. What is coming to you is not simply about ease or comfort, it is about responsibility. When God releases sudden provision into the hands of a chosen one, it is never accidental, and it is never shallow. This is not about proving anything, not about flashy moments, not about finally silencing doubters with material proof. That mindset is far beneath what you're being entrusted with. What's coming is sacred resource, divine capital, placed in your care with intention, not to impress, but to construct, not to perform, but to establish. The wealth approaching you carries purpose inside it. It is meant to finance vision, not ego, to sustain impact, not image. Chosen ones are builders by nature. They don't just enjoy abundance, they activate it. They create systems where there were none. They invest in solutions where others only complain. They underwrite healing, protection, and progress in places most people overlook. This is why the process stretched you. God wasn't only shaping your ability to receive, He was shaping your capacity to steward. Because money given before clarity becomes noise, but money given after refinement becomes multiplication. God does not release provision based on desire alone. He releases it according to assignment. You are not being randomly blessed. You are being deliberately resourced. Where you are headed, belief alone will not be enough. You will need tangible backing. Vision requires leverage. And in this world, finances carry authority. You are being trusted with both. That is why the craving for applause had to die. God protected your heart from turning purpose into performance. He preserved your focus so when the door opened, you would recognize exactly why it did. This season is not about showing off. It is about laying foundations, about funding ideas that restore dignity, about quietly answering prayers from people who can offer nothing in return. That is kingdom work. And when the provision reaches you, it will feel weighty, not because of the numbers, but because you'll know it is confirmation that God found you steady enough to carry answers meant for far more than yourself. Number 5. Even now, you are being observed in ways you cannot see. While you're living your ordinary days, moving through routines that feel unnoticed, there are eyes on you that have nothing to do with opposition this time. These are gatekeepers of provision, people positioned within financial systems, decision makers, investors, lenders, quiet partners, and divine connections you have not yet been introduced to. They are not watching your highlights. They are watching how you handle scarcity. They are paying attention to how you move when resources are limited and recognition is absent. What matters to them is not how impressive you look, but how consistent you are when nothing is guaranteed. They are studying your discipline, your restraint, your honesty, and your ability to stay aligned when pressure increases. In their world, talent is common, charisma is everywhere, ambition is cheap. What is rare is character that holds steady without applause. They want to see if you cut corners when it would be easy, if you stay generous when it costs you, if you remain grounded when progress feels slow. This is not a performance review, it is a trust assessment. And yes, notes are being taken. Some of these gatekeepers carry access to capital. Others are linked to systems that could accelerate what you're building overnight. Some are quietly discerning who is safe to align with. Others are feeling a nudge to invest in someone whose integrity has already been tested by time. You are not chasing money. Money is waiting for alignment. Chosen ones do not attract provision by force. They attract it through readiness. You stayed faithful in dry seasons. You chose integrity when compromise promised faster results. You built patiently, piece by piece, even when no one acknowledged the work. That is why the right attention is now on you, not because you asked for it, not because you marketed yourself well, but because there is something unteachable in you, something steady and sincere. When the door finally opens, it will look sudden to others, but you will recognize it as the natural outcome of quiet preparation. While others were performing, you were becoming. And that is what qualifies you not only to receive increase, but to carry it with clarity, strength, and grace. Number 6. The increase coming to you will unsettle people who never healed the parts of themselves that needed humility. When wealth rises suddenly around you, it doesn't arrive quietly in other people's hearts. It presses on old assumptions. It disrupts the mental hierarchy where they placed you beneath them. To many, you were supposed to remain the background character, the one with potential but no payoff, the one easy to overlook or quietly dismiss. So when God elevates you without their permission, it rattles something deep inside them. Unhealed people don't interpret your breakthrough as growth. They interpret it as injustice. Not because you cheated the process, but because your rise exposes their stagnation. Your success reminds them of time they wasted, work they avoided, and inner healing they refused to face. Instead of celebrating what God did in you, they feel threatened by what it says about them. They will struggle to reconcile how favor found you without their approval. Some will reduce it to luck. Others will minimize the sacrifice it took to get here. A few will invent stories to make themselves feel better about why it wasn't them. Because acknowledging that your breakthrough came through discipline, surrender, obedience, and endurance would force them to confront how lightly they treated their own seasons. That reflection is uncomfortable, so they resist it. Your elevation becomes a mirror they don't want to look into, and that is why reactions will feel sharp, confusing, even unfair. But this was never about comparison. Your rise is not an attack, it is alignment. The light on your life will cause people to squint, not because it's aggressive, but because it's honest. It reveals that God does not promote based on popularity, volume, or status. He promotes based on purpose and readiness. When he entrusts someone with resources, he is not impressed by resumes. He weighs hearts. So you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to explain the process. Let assumptions run their course. Your life already tells the story. What some will call luck is actually legacy unfolding. And this increase is not about proving anyone wrong. It is about restoring what was ignored, undervalued, and delayed. You are not only receiving resources, you are carrying resilience, wisdom, and depth. That is the part that will unsettle them most, because wealth can be copied, but character cannot. What most people never realize is that this reaction was actually the signal, not the problem. Number 7. The quiet test no one warns you about is the loneliness that can follow increase. Sudden wealth has a way of thinning the room. Everyone celebrates the upgrade, the comfort, the visibility, but almost no one prepares you for how alone it can feel once you arrive. As elevation happens, the noise fades, not because you became distant, but because dynamics shifted. Money doesn't just change circumstances, it redraws relational lines. Trust becomes more selective. Access becomes intentional, and people who once felt familiar may start feeling foreign. Some will assume your blessings belong to them by default. Others will quietly resent that you no longer move the way you used to. You may hear whispers that you changed, when in reality you simply matured. You'll notice that some people loved the version of you that struggled, but feel uncomfortable with the version that stands secure. Wealth exposes motives. Applause can turn into competition. Support can sour into comparison, and discernment becomes necessary just to survive. That realization can sting. It can feel like loss. But what's actually happening is protection. God never removes people to punish you. He removes them to preserve you. Some connections were assigned to your endurance, not your abundance. If they had access to your overflow, they would have exhausted it. So the circle narrows. Conversations grow shallow or stop altogether. Silence settles in. And at first, it can feel heavy, like something is wrong. But slowly, clarity comes. You begin to see who was attached to your journey and who was attached to your destiny. The smaller circle isn't rejection, it's refinement. It's space. Space to think clearly, hear God without interference, and make decisions without emotional debt. That solitude isn't emptiness, it's sacred ground. For the unrooted, it feels unbearable. For the aligned, it feels like safety. You weren't pushed away, you were set apart. Because higher responsibility requires quieter rooms. And the truth is, not everyone is meant to walk beside those called to carry weight. Some were only ever meant to witness the rise from afar. Number 8. Increase will attract hidden snares dressed up as opportunity. When wealth begins to move toward you, it doesn't arrive alone with ease and expansion. It brings invitations that test your discernment. Some of the most dangerous traps won't look dark or threatening. They will look polished, promising, even heaven-sent. They will show up as partnerships, investments, collaborations, and rare chances that seem too perfect to pass up. But not every door that opens is aligned with your assignment. Some offers are distractions wrapped in agreement. Some people are not helpers, but hindrances sent to reroute what you were born to build. When your calling threatens systems of control, resistance doesn't always come as opposition. Sometimes it comes as funding. The enemy doesn't always block purpose. He tries to finance it just enough to corrupt it. That's why some offers feel right on paper but heavy in your spirit. They mirror your language, echo your vision, and appeal to your urgency, yet something underneath feels off. These are not just financial arrangements, they are spiritual entanglements. Agreements that cost more than money, because once access is given, separation becomes complicated. This is why discernment outweighs profit in seasons of acceleration. Numbers alone cannot guide you. You must sense the spirit behind the deal, the motives behind the generosity, the fruit behind the favor. Some opportunities promise speed, but demand silence. Some platforms offer exposure, but require compromise. Some partners invest outwardly while draining you inwardly. Chosen ones are called to build clean, not just big. What you are carrying is meant to heal, restore, and liberate, and that requires purity at the source. Your resources must align with your mission. Your collaborations must honor your values, and your decisions must be anchored in peace, not pressure. Walking away from something that looks profitable but feels wrong is not loss, it is protection. Ignoring red flags for fast gain leads to slow bondage. Abundance tied to control is never a blessing. Guard what you are building. What God brings to you will never require you to betray your integrity, silence your truth, or shrink your calling. What is truly meant for you will arrive without contamination and without coercion. This is where most people misunderstand what breakthrough actually triggers. Everything you've heard so far has been preparation for this next truth. Number 9. The first million is not the reward. It is the signal flare. Most people imagine that reaching their first million is the end of the struggle, the point where tension fades and life finally becomes easy. They think that once the number appears, everything will calm down and stability will arrive. But for the chosen ones, that first major financial breakthrough is not a finish line. It is an entry point. It is a threshold. It marks the moment when the game changes and the resistance escalates. This is not the season to exhale. It is the season to become alert. Wealth brings visibility. When you were scraping by, you were invisible. People dismissed you, underestimated you, left you untouched because you weren't considered a threat. But the moment that first million manifests, perception shifts. Suddenly, you are seen, and with visibility comes pressure. Attention turns into scrutiny, support turns into strategy. You are no longer overlooked, you are observed. Legal pressure may arise unexpectedly. Audits, contracts with hidden hooks, subtle attempts to pull you into disputes designed to drain your time, energy, and focus. Financial attacks may surface through sudden losses, deceptive advisors, or offers meant to weaken your foundation. And then there is the deeper layer, ancestral resistance. Patterns that haunted your bloodline for generations do not release quietly. Cycles of lack, addiction, and limitation recognize when someone has stepped beyond the boundary they were meant to enforce. You didn't just succeed for yourself, you broke a pattern. And breaking patterns awakens opposition that is larger than the individual. This is legacy territory now. Every decision carries weight, every agreement matters, every conversation counts. discernment becomes survival. Not everyone celebrating your rise wants you to remain standing. Some want proximity without loyalty, access without alignment. The first million is not simply evidence of growth. It is confirmation that you have entered a new arena. Protection becomes intentional. Boundaries become non-negotiable. You learn to walk away without apology from anything that threatens your peace, your values, or your vision. You didn't just gain wealth, you gained attention. And while the battlefield is now visible, so is your covering. The blessing was never the number. The blessing is the wisdom, strength, and precision being forged as you stand your ground and move forward unshaken. If that landed heavily, pause here. That weight isn't fear, it's recognition. And recognition always arrives right before release. Number 10. You are not being positioned to outshine people around you. You are being prepared to outgive systems far larger than yourself. The level of wealth moving toward you has nothing to do with comparison and everything to do with calling. This is not about proving you made it or standing taller than your peers. This is about being appointed. You are not being elevated to display excess. You are being elevated to release supply. God did not select you merely to accumulate. He selected you to steward. What is coming into your hands is not just money, it is trust. You are being shaped into a living distribution point, someone who can take provision and translate it into restoration, healing, and renewal. This wealth is intentional, precise, and purpose-driven. It is designed to flow into places that have been ignored, into people who were gifted but buried, into visions that carried truth but lacked backing. It is meant to rebuild what was dismantled, to rescue potential that was abandoned, and to confront systems that have quietly profited from keeping others small. This is not about status climbing, it is about reach expanding. You are being positioned to bless beyond borders, beyond institutions, beyond what governments and programs can even manage. That is why the pressure felt heavy. That is why resistance showed up early. You are not stepping into a small assignment. You are being prepared for impact that ripples outward. Your generosity will not just relieve pain, it will activate purpose. It will fund movements, unlock futures, and alter family lines for generations. You are not just becoming successful, you are becoming consequential. But this level requires a shift within. This cannot be carried with a mindset centered on self. What is coming is not meant to be stored away or used to settle old scores. It is meant to heal what has been fractured for far too long. God is entrusting you with influence that extends beyond your identity. This is kingdom weight, and with it comes sacred responsibility. You will give in ways most people cannot imagine, not because you are pressured, but because you are aligned. And while others chase recognition, your life will quietly rebuild what was broken. When people look at what unfolds around you, they will not just see wealth, they will see restoration made visible. Number 11. Sudden wealth will bring you face to face with forgiveness you never received closure for. When abundance finally enters your life, it will not arrive alone. It will reopen old chapters. Names you thought were finished will resurface. Faces from seasons of lack will reappear. Some will return wearing polite smiles that feel hollow. Some will carry quiet jealousy they never healed. Others will show up with familiarity, acting as if the past never happened. These are people who doubted you when you were struggling, who turned away when you were exposed, who spoke against you when you had nothing to offer them. And now, because your life has shifted, they circle back, not because they've grown, but because you have. What makes this season difficult is that most of them will never give you the apology you deserved. There will be no explanation, no accountability, no acknowledgement of the harm they caused. Some will minimize the past, some will rewrite history. A few may even imply they played a role in your success. And in those moments, something inside you may want to remind them who you are now, to let success speak sharply, to let distance feel like punishment. But that impulse is not elevation, that is retaliation. And the truth is, wanting revenge is understandable, but staying there would cost you everything this season is trying to give you. Wealth expands your options, and one of the most defining choices you will make is whether you use your new position to settle scores or to set yourself free. That decision shapes your character more than any amount of money ever could. Healing is not proven by confrontation, it is revealed by indifference. Forgiveness does not mean what they did was acceptable. It means it no longer controls you. It shows that you are no longer waiting to be validated, understood, or justified. Some of them may ask for access. Others will observe quietly. A few may attempt to step back into your life without addressing the past. Wisdom will guide you. You are not required to reopen every door, but you are invited to release every weight. Because abundance tests more than lifestyle, it tests the heart. You are not only being shaped to succeed, you are being refined to stay clear. And nothing clouds the spirit like resentment carried too long. Letting go is not for their benefit, it is for yours. Peace is the real authority, and forgiveness is the mark of someone who has truly risen. Number 12. Imposter syndrome will try to speak even after you've earned your place. Sudden wealth has a way of stirring insecurities you thought were already healed. Believing for the breakthrough is one thing, holding it in your hands is something else entirely. When the money arrives, when doors open effortlessly, when your environment begins to change, a quiet thought may rise and say, "Is this really meant for me?" That voice won't come as panic. It will sound subtle, almost humble. But it isn't humility. It is the leftover imprint of being overlooked for too long. You spent years as the underdog. You learned how to survive being underestimated, passed over, dismissed, even quietly mocked. Struggle became familiar. So when favor accelerates, your mind needs time to catch up with your reality. It can feel unreal, almost fragile, as if it could disappear at any moment. You may question whether it was a mistake. You may feel guilt for having more, while others are still fighting to get by. You may even feel an urge to downplay your success or unconsciously sabotage it just to return to what feels safe. But here is the anchor you must hold. Your preparation did not happen in public, but it was real. You were not loud about your process, but you were consistent. While others were performing, you were healing. While others were chasing validation, you were learning discipline, wisdom, restraint. You became ready in silence. So when abundance shows up, do not allow old wounds to convince you that you don't deserve what you once begged heaven for. This was not luck. This was alignment. Imposter syndrome lies by telling you that you slipped through the cracks, that you are one misstep away from losing everything. But heaven does not hand out generational assignments by accident. You were not randomly selected. You were deliberately prepared. Every delay, every loss, every season of obscurity trained you for this moment. So when wealth lands, do not shrink back. Receive it with steadiness, not with ego, but with grounded authority. You are not an imposter. You are the answer that survived the process. The seat was not borrowed, it was reserved. And now that you are there, trust that you belong, because heaven does not invest in what it has not already qualified. Number 13, God concealed your value until no system could exploit it. There was purpose in how long your ascent took, in why your gifts stayed unnoticed, your name remained unspoken, and your brilliance seemed muted while others were applauded. That silence was never proof of lack. It was evidence of protection. God was not withholding from you, He was guarding you. He knew that if certain structures, people, or institutions recognized your full worth too early, they would have tried to extract it, reshape it, and drain it for their own benefit. They would have offered opportunity with strings attached, access with hidden costs, platforms that demanded compromise. So you were not forgotten. You were hidden in plain sight, preserved, shielded. While it felt like delay, it was actually restraint placed on forces that would have tried to own you before you understood your own authority. You were kept out of rooms where your name would have been leveraged, but your soul dismissed. You were spared from circles that would have celebrated your output, but never honored your essence. God allowed you to be underestimated, so you would never be possessed. And now the season has shifted. You've endured enough to no longer chase validation. You've healed enough to spot manipulation before it speaks. You've matured enough to walk away from opportunities that glitter but feel wrong in your spirit. And because you are no longer hungry for approval, God is making your favor unavoidable. Not loud, not forced, simply undeniable. The same systems that once overlooked you will now have to recognize you, but this time they will not be able to steer you. The wealth approaching your life is not just provision. It is a declaration that you are unbuyable, unbribable, and uncontainable. That kind of abundance is threatening to darkness because it finances freedom. It builds what was ignored. It restores what tradition dismissed. And it cannot be hijacked because it no longer needs permission to exist. You are no longer vulnerable to being used because you now know your worth and your limits. And that is why this level of abundance will endure. It is not simply arriving, it is landing in hands that cannot be manipulated. What God releases in truth cannot be stolen through strategy. This is wealth authorized by heaven, and once released, it cannot be reversed. Number 14. You are not stepping into riches, you are stepping into resourcefulness. This season is not merely about numbers increasing in your account. It is about a deeper transformation taking place in how you think, see, and respond to the world around you. You are not just becoming wealthy, you are becoming a wellspring. And that shift is far more powerful than most people understand. Because true wealth is not defined by how much you can spend, but by how much you can create, multiply, steward, and sustain. God is not only expanding your income, He is expanding your perception. Your mind is being retrained. Your discernment is sharpening. Your relationship with money is maturing. You are beginning to understand that wealth is not about appearance, It is about architecture, not about accumulation, but about construction. You now see problems and recognize that you carry solutions, not only for yourself, but for others who cannot yet see a way forward. Before multiplication comes mastery, and that is what God has been cultivating in you. Your financial awareness is increasing. You are learning how to build systems, how to protect what you create, how to scale without losing integrity, and how to walk away from opportunities that sparkle but lack alignment. Discipline is forming quietly, the kind that sustains abundance long after excitement fades. At the same time, your emotional capacity is being strengthened, because wealth without emotional clarity collapses under its own weight. God has been healing the parts of you that once spent to feel worthy, gave to avoid guilt, or said yes out of fear of missing out. You are learning boundaries that do not need explanation and generosity that does not lead to exhaustion. Most importantly, your vision is stretching forward. You are thinking in generations, not moments. You are no longer chasing quick wins. You are building with intention, knowing that what truly matters is not just what you can obtain, but what you can pass on. This is more than a financial upgrade. It is an identity realignment. You are no longer pursuing wealth. You are becoming a conduit for it. Insight flows through you. Ideas rise within you. Impact expands around you. And when God shapes someone into this level of resourcefulness, provision follows naturally, steadily, and without strain. As this moment settles, let everything you have heard rest gently within you. Nothing about your journey has been wasted, and nothing you felt along the way was misplaced. The weariness, the waiting, the quiet strength you carried when no one saw it, all of it mattered, and all of it was held. You are not behind, not overlooked, not drifting off course. The pace of your life has been aligned with the season you are in, and the process unfolding around you has been faithful even when it felt slow. You have been kept, guided, and remembered every step of the way. Allow your spirit to soften now, to breathe, to trust that what is meant for you is already moving toward you. Stay here for the gentle stillness that follows, and let your heart remain open in the presence of what is unfolding next. If your heart feels stirred after this prayer, you are welcome to place what you are carrying into words in the comments below, whether it is a hope you have held quietly, a pain that still aches, a worry about the future, a question without answers, or something you have never said out loud before. Writing it here is not just a comment, it is an act of release, a way of laying it before God, trusting that He sees, hears, and gently holds every detail of your story in His perfect timing. If you feel led, you may also share this moment with someone who needs it and subscribe to stay connected. You are not alone, and this moment is being kept in God's presence and grace.